Poetry is said to have met the emotions, and emotions has made its thoughts, as rightfully said by Robert Frost. A very good afternoon to one and all present here, respected ma'am and my dear classmates. Today, our group will be presenting a presentation on the topic of poetic prose, unraveling the beauty and complexity of poetry. First of all, I would like to give a brief introduction of my teammates. Tia will be speaking about the introduction to poetry. Vedant will be speaking about the elements of poetry. Vikash will be speaking about the types of poetry. And Nitin and Raju will be speaking about the various popular poets. And lastly, Chaitanya will be speaking about the importance of poetry. So, firstly, I would like to start my presentation. Defining a poetry. Poetry is a type of literature which has been around in centuries and continues to captivate us as readers and listeners alike with its unique style and ability to evoke emotions. It also helps to express ideas, emotions, and experiences in a condensed and imaginative way. It follows a specific pattern of rhythm, rhyme, and mimesis, which gives it a distinct musical quality. It also follows the rule of imagination instead of meaning, which gives us a more insight compared to just the meaning of a particular poetry. And lastly, it gives a sense of delight, awe, and wonder to the readers and listeners alike. Now moving on to the next topic, which is the necessary things needed in a poetry. Poetry requires creativity. Poet tries to find many different ways to easily deliver the poetry to the audience. They try to gather as many relevant topics so that the audience can have an introduction and interaction with them. Emotion is a key part of poetry. Without emotions, it is like the body without blood. Emotions creates the instinct and impact in a reader's mind when he or she is reading a poetry. Logic is another key part of poetry. Without logic, a poetry is meaningless. A good poetry is expected to have an important and a variable result. The quality of artist and a poet also matters in a poetry. A well-knowledgeable and a well-educated person will write a poetry which is well understood by the audience. If we try to compare between the poetry of Shakespeare and the poetry of a local person, we can easily distinguish the difference between the two. And elements like meter, rhyme scheme, rhyming, mimesis, meter, etc. are important elements of poetry. Without these elements, a poetry will be like a jewelry left with no beauty within it. Now moving on to my next topic, which is inspiring creativity. Poetry acts as a good way of inspiring creativity. So let us see how it can inspire creativity. The poet tries to instill as much as powerful words. We should go deeper inside a reader's mind and bring a different sense of attitude and outlook towards a particular source. Along with this, poetry also influences other artists such as musicians, filmmakers, and painters, which should bring more impact and detail to the poetry from which they have taken inspirations. Apart from this, it also enriches our cultural and heritageal prideness. We have seen many poetries for our heritage and culture which will continue to flourish even in the future as well. Poetry is a key factor which motivates people to do some innovations in their respective fields. And lastly, it ignites the creative spark within readers with its beautiful imagery, sparkling lines, and many other important elements. Now for the very last item of the introduction to poetry, how it is in our everyday life. Poetry doesn't rise in the realm of literature and academia. It is also instilled in our day-to-day life, from song lyrics that resonates within our hearts to heartfelt words shared between our loved ones. As we know, poetry is omnipresent. We just have to feel and see poetry in our everyday life. Deep understandings of ourselves is also given by poetry. We get a moment to introspect with ourselves, others, and the surrounding of us so that we can appreciate the beauty of the simplest of the words. Poetry can easily be delivered to the truth. As poets try to clearly express the truth from their side, we have also seen that poetry can act as a good barrier and show the truth in a good way. And foremostly, let us appreciate the beautiful power of poetry and how it continues to give us a good essence in our day-to-day life through its intrinsic property of beauty and charm. That was all from my side. Now I would like to call upon Vedant to say about the elements used in poetry.